So now let's talk about getting started. In the chat, put yes or no if this is the first time in 15 years that you've had to look for a job. Yep, quite a few yeses. Some no's. Cool. So it's about half and half. A lot has changed. How many people, this is the first time in the last 5 years that they've been applying for a job? So even within the last 5 years, a lot has changed about looking for a job. And so the process of getting started is different than it used to be. But I think one thing that hasn't changed is the stress. Managing the stress of job loss can be really hard. Not only for you, but for the other people in your life. Anybody who finds this particular time in life exciting? Yes or no in the chat. Anybody find this an exciting time? Yeah. Right. So, part of the job, the stress is what? Knowing how you're going to afford life. How are you going to replace the salary that you lost? Part of the stress is not having that schedule, that management, and part of it is how do you define yourself now? One of the questions people ask at a social event is, oh, what do you do for a living, right? Also, there's dealing with family life and how does that affect your family life? There's a lot of different components that add to the stress of seeing more of losing your job, right? It's not only the job loss, the loss of your identity, maybe the loss of the schedule, there's financial loss. So job loss in and of itself is an emotional roller coaster, right? You might think that, wow, this is a great time. I can now I didn't really like my job. It's a time to find other opportunities. Or it might be, oh my God, I've had the same job for 20 years. How do I rebrand myself? So there's a total up and down about it. And that's just really normal, right? You get the news, it sinks in, you are angry maybe because of how it happened, and there's self-doubt and sadness. Put in the chat where you are on this roller coaster. Where do you see yourself right now on this roller coaster? Nobody sees themselves on the roller coaster taking action. Oh, it's very small. Cool. All over the place. And that's the way it is, right? We're all over the place. First half. Yeah, so sometimes the job hunt can take longer than you think it would, right? Today's economy is not the same economy of 5 years ago, of even 20 years ago, as maybe even last year or pre-COVID. So things change. And one of the things that you can keep tucked in the back of your head is that for every 10,000 that you want to make over 65, 75,000, it might take an extra month because there are fewer of those positions out there. And so you're looking for literally a needle in the haystack, and that takes time, right? So there's a recovery, right? You have to recognize your feelings, right? And that's easier to do nowadays than it was 10 years ago because people are now talking about feelings, right? It's okay to be down. It's okay to be sad. Um, it's really a healthy thing to recognize your feelings, right? Um, it's important to find a safe outlet and to figure out how to manage those feelings. And family might not be the best place. It might be, but it might not, and that's okay if it's not. Um, find a trusted friend, or maybe another trusted relative, or a trusted former coworker. But find a way to have an outlet for your feelings. And maybe what are some actions that you can do? Is it getting more physically active and walking on a regular basis? Is it scheduling a date with a loved one or a partner once a week, just so you feel like you're not job hunting 24/7? Figure out not only who is safe to talk to, but what can you do to manage your feelings. To, journaling is something that helps some people. Being creative and doing some kind of craft or art is another thing. We're lucky in the Twin Cities because there's a lot of free or almost free activities. So figure out a way to deal with those feelings, right? And everybody is different. And then you need to forgive, right? You have to forgive. You don't have to forget. There's a difference between forgiving and forgetting, but you have to forgive to move on. So if the way you left your job was not all that comfortable or cool, or you felt like you were mistreated, abused, or discarded, you need to forgive that, right? You need to say, okay, that happened. Now what's next, right? You have to find a way to move on. And, again, there are what people might view as kumbaya ways of doing that. Writing a letter of all your feelings about how you feel, about how you were let go, and then burn it, right? Don't send it, burn it, right? But you need to forgive to move on. Um, and that's totally different than forgetting, but you need to forgive. And then you need to accept the change, right? I worked at this place for 20 years. This was my life. This is what I did. But now the door is about to open. I have a plaque, calligraphy sign in my office that says, for every ending, there's a new beginning. A chance to set new goals, to dream new dreams, rekindle the hope in our hearts. For endings are a way of rediscovering ourselves, learning who we are and what we need in life, where we want to go, and what we want to be. So think of this as a new beginning. And I know that's cliche. When one door closes, another opens, but it's true. And your emotional state and your attitude about where you are in life will come across. It will come across in your resume. It will come across in your cover letter. It will definitely come across in interviews. So you need to move through. You need to recognize your feelings, find a way to deal with them, move on by forgiving, and then as you forgive, you accept where you are and figure out where you want to go. There's no way to camouflage if you feel stuck when you're interviewing, right? And if you've done all the hard work to get the interview, you want to be there and show up as your best self. That's really, really important. And there is acknowledgement that bouncing back can be hard, right? It's a choice you make every day, and you can choose how you feel. put in the chat how you feel right now today about finding your next open door, your next opportunity. Great, great. Yep, cool. Yeah, and it really is all about attitude, because you'll learn in the next couple of creative jobs or workshop that if you get an interview, your resume has done its job. And at the interview, you have to show up positive and energized, right? And employers have tricky ways of getting to that. They'll say, give me an example how you dealt with change that you didn't like at work, right? And that's getting at your attitude. Or why did you leave your last job, which we'll deal with that question later. Tell me about a supervisor you did not like. So in the interview, creative job search, we help you deal with those tough questions, but it's all about attitude. And if you are still upset and mad and feel angry about what happened, it's going to come across. So you need to feel strong and energized and positive, and you truly inside, and then that's what you'll convey. It's just really important to do that. So, what are some ways of staying positive? Right? So, we already talked about some previously. You want to talk with others, and it's okay to share how you feel, but it's good to have friends or family or someone to talk to who's not going to say, oh, it's going to be okay, who talk to you about how you're talking to yourself, who will help you think through your thinking. You want to have friends who are honest, support that is honest. And then there are support groups and job club. And if you go to careerforcemn.com to the calendar, there are many, many job fairs that are held throughout the state. I help co-facilitate one every Thursday from 9 to 11, and it's hybrid. So you can either be there virtually or in person, and you can meet with other people who are in the same position. And not only do you learn what the subject is that's being offered, but you also learn from other people, because they're meant to be very interactive, and people can say, you wouldn't believe the question I was just asked at my last interview, or, how do you handle this when you're doing informational interviews? So you don't only learn from the person who is the facilitator of the job club, but you learn from the people who are there. And then there's always exercise and counseling, positive self-talk. I always like to remind people that you should talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. A lot of times we talk to ourselves just horribly, just absolutely horribly. We would not tolerate that type of talk from anybody in our life, but we do that to ourselves. So you have to talk to yourself like you would do it if you were talking to a friend who needed support. And volunteering is a really great way of getting out of your head. There are multiple volunteer opportunities throughout the state. It not only helps you get out of your head, get away from your computer, around other people, but it's also a good way to expand on skills that you might be interested in highlighting in a job interview on your resume. If you're making a transition, I have a coworker who had a job in finance, got laid off in one of the recessions, and decided that she really wanted to go into vocational counseling to be a career counselor. What she did was she volunteered for an organization that helped women find jobs. And so, with that volunteer experience behind her, when she applied for the job at the Career Force, she got the job because she had the experience, but it was solely through volunteering. Jack, are there any questions that we should be addressing right now?
No, ma'am, I haven't really seen any questions. They're just responding with their emotions and what's happening.
Okay,
I do not see anything.
cool. Thank you. There are apps that you can get free for a month that will help you with meditation, with breathing exercises, with guided self talk. So I would definitely, if that's something that interests you, I would check those out. But what's the next step, right? You've checked your attitude, you've learned how to forgive, but not forget, and now you're moving on, right? Now you need a plan. What are you going to do to look for a job, look for that opportunity? We have all these resources. So there's careerforcemn.com. It has assessments. It has information about resumes, cover letters, interviewing. It has a calendar that has job fairs, job clubs on it. And then you can do skill assessments. So my skills, my future, skill wise, Career One Stop, ONET One. I never know how to say that. ONET.org. Those are all places that you can go for assessments, information about different careers. The Minnesota government has a whole bunch of job stats that tell you projected increase in different fields. So you could research. Yes, you will get a copy of the presentation, and that will have the all this in it. So there are all kinds of things you can research forever, right? But it's really, really important to do your homework, right? So if you're going to think about transitioning from what you did to something new, you want to know what the projected increase. You want to know what skills that you have that will transfer, and that will help you write your resume, that will help you write your cover letter, that will help you in your interview, right? So if you're a K through 12 teacher and you want to go into training in a corporate setting, you have to compare those two careers, and Career One Stop will help you do that. So you need to research where you are, what you have, and where you want to go. And Jack has put in even some more information about what you can get from these sites. It's just really important to do your research and then to fill in your gaps, right? So there are different places that you can get education. So here's careerforcemn.com. It has links to the skill assessments. If you sign up for a free account, you get other things. They have a resume template in it. This is Career One Stop, great website. It's supplemented by state government and federal government. So what is on here is checked and validated. So great, great resources. The state of Minnesota, labor market information. We have great people, statisticians, and different types of people that can help you that add to this. It's really a great website. I often go to it. And then there are different sites that you can go to flesh out your skills. So there's Jack, could you put in that website where you can get computer training?
Yes, ma'am. Just a moment.
Cool. Yeah. So there's, and the name of it right now eludes me, but there's a site where you can get free training, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, from the very beginner to advance. It's a great place to go and get free training. If you have a library card, a lot of times you can do LinkedIn for, excuse me, LinkedIn for Learning, free without a premium site if you enter the site via your library. I know that Hennepin, Dakota, Anoka, and Ramsey, I think, are all free. But for those of you outstate, I would check your library system. I did that one time when I was in transition. I wanted to up my game for training. And so I took a class, an online class through LinkedIn about working with subject matter experts. And because if you give it permission, it will post it automatically on your LinkedIn profile. Excuse me. And so there are lots of ways to increase your skills. All right. So you've more or less come to grips that you're now in this world of looking for a job. You've checked your attitude and you're working on making sure that you have a positive attitude as you move forward. You figured out ways to support yourself, to become more positive, more energized. And now the really, really hard work happens. If that isn't hard enough, is preparing for the job hunt, right? The first thing you got to do is get organized. You got to manage your schedule. People think, oh, you're home. How many people out there have had requests on their time from family and friends just because they know that they're home and they don't have an 8-hour-a-week job, right? So a big skill to develop is the art of saying no, right? Because you do need to look at looking for a job as a full-time job, right? So you need to be able to say no, and that's another stress factor when you're unemployed. So you have to learn how to balance your job search activities with daily life. You need to figure out a system for keeping good records. I don't know if you've already experienced this, but every job site you go to asks you to register, right? So you need to know the email that you use, the password that you use, the username that you use, right? You need to figure out a way to keep all that information straight. I suggest that you get a professional sounding email address specifically for job hunting, which is easy to do with Google or Yahoo or Hotmail or other formats, whatever you decide. It should be as simple and direct as possible. Yes, password. So yeah. You don't want your email address to be baba@gmail.com or Princess Leia or yay fun time right? And these are real examples, folks. So you want a professional email. You also want to make sure that your voicemail is not full. And you want to make sure that your recording on your voicemail is professional. That, hi there, I'm not here right now. I'm out having a good time. Please leave a message. And when I'm done, I'll get back to you, right? It needs to be a very professional email message, a voicemail message, right? So you have a professional email address, you have a professional voicemail message on your phone, and choose a system that works. Somebody in the chat said password apps, management apps work. If you're not into that, maybe a spreadsheet, maybe paper copies, whatever. Figure out the system that works for you and be as anal retentive about it as you can, right? Because once you start submitting applications and you get interview requests, right? You're going to want to know where that came from, right? Who it was. Did you have the interview? Did you follow up? There's all kinds of things to keep track of. Also, you need to have detailed record of your work history because many sites, many businesses use the application process as the first step in screening. And a lot of times they're timed. So you only have so much time to fill out the application online, and then you lose everything. So you make sure that you have the start and end dates of all your work history for at least 10 to 15 years. Supervisor address, phone number. If the supervisor is no longer at the company, do you know how to get a hold of them, right? Everything that you need for filling out an application should be either printed out next to you while you're doing it or on a separate screen if you use more than one screen. But you need to have then a list of what you did. So essentially your resume, right? But more detailed than would be on your resume because it's important that you have all that information. 20 plus years is great. You don't need to go back any further. All right. To help organize your time, it's good to have SMART goals. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So an example would be set real numbers with real deadlines. You know, don't say, I'm going to apply for jobs. Say, I'm going to apply for 4 jobs during the week, right? And it has to be measurable. So measurable would be 4, right? Is it obtainable? Do you know that within the next week that you would be able to find and apply for 4 jobs as a quality application? You know, is it realistic? And then is it time bound? So you're saying so let's say between October 27th and November 2nd, I will apply for 4 quality jobs, right? Or if you're right at the very beginning, you can say between October 27th and November 2nd, I will update my resume and have it proofed by 2 people, right? So I'm saying what I'm going to do, when I'm going to have it done, and what action I'm going to do to finish it. It's just really important to write these out if you're one of those type of people who need something to cross off a list. And it's also good not to have too many because it has to be realistic and attainable. So if you have 20 SMART goals for 1 week, you're not going to get them all done, and you're going to add that failure to your stress, and you don't want to do that. Any questions about SMART goals?
Hey, Sandra, I'm gonna pop in real quick. I did have a question. Are you going to be discussing more about how to plan, how to address planning for your job search and how to prepare and
Yep, I think we do some of that.
perfect. And then another question is, if your last job was 20 plus years, should you go back further in your work history?
I don't think so. What do you think?
So if you've been in a job for that period of time, you can't really shorten it. I think that it's important. We're noticing years ago, if the job description requested 5 plus, 10 plus years, but you had 20, employers would see that as a wonderful asset because you'd have a lot to bring to the team and you could grow and advance and help. Nowadays, we're recommending if the job description says 5 plus, 10 plus, that you really do mirror the 5 or the 10. And if you meet the qualifications, to make sure they're peppered throughout your resume and not to list any additional accolades or anything that you've done above and beyond, because that tends to, any type of being overqualified tends to cancel you out. They kind of tend to look at you as the possible succession, the person who's going to succeed them in their role. So I would just mirror as much as you can with what they're asking for and don't go over that.
Cool. All right. So if you're newly unemployed and you've not started anything, I would look at your resume, right? Is your resume up to date? And a good place to look for how to improve it would be to do a skill assessment, right? When I was first unemployed, I sat down and I wrote down everything I felt that I did that was worth talking about from my job, my previous job, and look at all the skills that I brought to the job and all my accomplishments. So I know what I'm capable of, and then you can put plus signs by the ones that you really enjoyed doing. So be really honest. What in your past job did you enjoy doing? And put negative signs by those that you didn't like doing, right? So this is kind of then a guidepost when you're looking at jobs, because I don't know about you, but how many people out there find looking for a job one of the most exciting things they've ever done? Yes or no in the chat. Is looking for a job one of the most exciting things you've ever done? Right. So you don't want to go into a bad situation that you're going to have to do all of this all over again, right? So make sure that you are aware of what you liked in your previous positions and what you didn't like. And then use that kind of like a filter when you're looking at job postings, right? So you know what you liked and you didn't like. You do some skill assessments if you feel a need to do that. So you know what you're actually bringing to the table. You go online and look at some other jobs, do OneNet, onet.com or Career One Stop, and see if you're interested in transitioning, what other jobs out there, what other positions utilize those skills that you enjoy doing. You have all that. Then it's recommended that you decide what kind of size company do you want to work at? Like, did you work at a big mega corporation and that wasn't for you? Or did you really enjoy doing that? Would you rather work at a small 4 or 5 person mom and pop type place, or a middle of the road organization that's local with some national or international reach? Decide what size of company you want to work for, and then research what are some companies that fit those criteria, right? Go to their website, go to LinkedIn, see if they have a LinkedIn page, go to Glassdoor, see what employers are saying, but figure out at least 5 or 6 companies that you think are good, that you would really enjoy working on. And then you also have to figure out what your salary range is, what you're willing to work for, how much slush room there is, what benefits are important to you. Those would be all important when you get to negotiating, or also the size of the company that you're going to apply for, right? So if you were working at $100,000, you know that a mom and pop place probably wouldn't be able to support that. So that would affect the company size and the types of company that you work for. But just, figure out where you want to be in the world, and then research companies that will fit into that. And then if you're on LinkedIn, figure out who you can talk to just to find out about the company. Use it as a networking tool. Who do you know that has worked at those companies that you can just talk to about working at the company? Or who do you know that knows somebody at those companies that they can introduce you to get? There's a book out called The 20-Minute Networking Meeting. That's a really good tool for used to be called informational interviewing. And it's not when you talk to someone saying, oh, I need a job at your company, please hire me. It's where you find out maybe if you have a hole in your skill set, where you would get it, what was their journey to get to where they're at, how do they enjoy working at the company. There's a whole set of questions that you can use to find out more, and then to introduce yourself to people who work at the company. Is that helpful to the person who wanted more of a roadmap to how to get organized for the job search? Cool. All right.
Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. And also remember to figure out how you're going to track all this information, right? So even how are you going to track your research? Because this research then might come in handy later down the road if you get an interview there, right? So if one of your dream companies all of a sudden has a job opening and you have an interview there, then you have half of the work done to prep for the interview. So figure out a way right away how to organize all this information to do it. And for those of you who are interested in a state of Minnesota job, on October 31st, the Thursday Morning Job Club will have 3, if not 4, different departments or divisions within the state in an HR panel. And you can find a link to register for that at careerforcemn.com. If you search for North Minneapolis, it's October 31st from 9 to 11. And maybe, Jack, we can include that in the email.
Will do.
All right, so here are some places that one can research, right? We already talked about that. Company websites, Google them, see where they're in the news. There are business sections in libraries, LinkedIn, career information websites like LinkedIn and Glassdoor, conversations, your network, and your local career force centers, right? So people at the local career force centers know about the businesses in their area, know about the employers, know about the statistics about who's hiring, who's not hiring, what are some good jobs to have in that area, because every part of the state, every city in the state is different. And that's another reason to use your local career force center. You can do a networking card. I would not put my address on it. That's totally your decision. This is a card that you can leave with people when you're networking. There are great places to get them. Just print. There are online sites that have cheap, inexpensive would be a better word, places to make these. You can put skills on the back. A digital card is really a good way to go. Everybody is digital now. Everybody works from their phone. And this will take me on a tangent, but it's sometimes hard or impossible to apply for jobs specifically just from your phone. More and more companies are getting better at formatting application process from the phone, but it's not always a smooth thing to do, a smooth activity. So I know that many libraries have computers that you can use. Quite a few career force offices have computers that you can use. If at all possible, I suggest, at least when you're starting the process, to do it on a laptop or a desktop or a tablet even, versus your phone, just so you can get the mechanics of it down and understand what's needed and how to fill them out. A digital networking card is a really great thing to have, because now more and more people ask for are all digital. I know that oftentimes my husband would complain that our 30-something grandchildren were not getting back to them when they emailed him. He did not text. So I would send them a text saying, please check your email. Please check your email. Your grandfather just sent you information. And then they would do it. So, and you have to remember that a lot of times the hiring manager or the HR people are more into the new tech than you might be at the time. And so that's another thing about ageism on the job. You have to get hip, for lack of a better word, into the new technology and be able to use it. So what's a portfolio, and do you really need a portfolio? A lot of times it's viewed as if you're in the arts field or the music field, or sometimes, welding or more of a hands-on type of occupation, you need a portfolio. But a portfolio is a good thing for almost anybody, especially if you do in-person interviews. You need to bring at least 5 copies of your resume and cover letter. We have a colleague who this was in the profit world, for an interview, and was told that it would have to be rescheduled once she got there, because their system was down and nobody was able to review her resume. She goes, oh, I have 5 copies with me. Would that be handy? They were elated, right? They were able to do the interview as scheduled. It showed off her attention to detail and her prep for an important event. And so it's really good to have that. It's really good to have a list of references, especially for an in-person interview, just in case. You should never have anybody on your reference list that you haven't talked to. If I was going to take something with me in my portfolio, it would include maybe a presentation that I put together if I was applying for a training position, right? You have to be careful with your examples that they're not proprietary information, things that you should not be sharing from your past employers. You don't ever want to do that. And it also sets up a precedent that if you're doing that for a past employer, you'd probably do it for them. So you want to make sure if you're into a position that has to do a lot with spreadsheets, you might want to show the formatting of a spreadsheet, but not the results from those formatting. There's all kinds of ways that you can highlight what you did, and it never hurts to have them and to be ready to share that information. Right, so choose your references carefully. You want people who can talk specifically to the skills that are asked for in the job. You don't want, like, so if I was applying for a training job, I might ask Jack to be a reference because she's seen me present. I also have been teaching for quite a few years at other locations, and I would ask those people, but I wouldn't ask somebody from my work here as a coworker who has never seen me present, but has just seen me work as a career counselor, right? You want people to be able to address specifically the position requirements and preferred requirements. And you can use peers, supervisors, instructors, clients, always ask for permission, always have the most recent contact information, always contact those people right after an interview and let them know that they might be contacted, and send them your resume and the job posting so they know, and tell them how the interview went and what was talked about so they know specifically what to address. So checkpoints, right? What did we cover today? We talked about recovering from the job loss, checking your attitude. Look at it as facing a challenge every day. And we've learned the importance of a positive attitude. Put in the chat one thing that you're going to do going forward to help you stay positive. What's one thing that you're going to do going forward to stay positive? Put it in the chat, please. Cool. Someone's dog is going to get really fit. All righty. Now put one thing that you're going to do to stay organized with your job search. What's one thing you're going to do to get organized? Cool. All right, so I'd like you, this might take a little bit more, but I want you to put in the chat a SMART goal that you're going to accomplish next week. So from October 27th to November 2nd, what is one SMART goal that you're going to accomplish in that time period? Put it in the chat. Cool. All right, and where is one place you are going to research your next opportunity? Where's one place you're going to research your next job opportunity? Cool. Okay, before we get on to the question part of this, I would like you to put in the chat one thing you learned today that you didn't know before you got here. What's one thing you learned today that you didn't know before you got here? Cool. Great. All right, so we have a little bit more than 5 minutes for any questions.
So I haven't seen anything. Oh, let's see. Where do I sign? Oh, shoosh, I can't get this one thing off my screen. Where do I sign up to meet with someone about reviewing my resume? So I'll
So
put
that would
link
be
in
that
there.
list that Jack's going to send out about your career force locations. Contact your nearest career force, and she just put it in the chat again. And reach out and tell them that's what you want.
Let's see. It's funny. Her husband's looking forward to her getting back to work.
For multiple reasons, probably.
Right.
Any other questions? You know, you're very lucky living in Minnesota, depending on how you feel about snow versus summer, but put that discussion to the side. We have a lot of resources. This Department DEED, the Department of Economic Employment and Economic Development, specifically the Career Force, has an incredible amount of resources here for you to take advantage of free. So besides the career force and the staff there to help you, we have a program called Dislocated Worker, which is another opportunity for you to get free or get help with a training program, right? That might help you transition to a new job or might help you beef up your skills in your area of desired employment. So when you call and check in at your career force location, also ask about the Dislocated Worker Program because that's a great resource to help you with your transition. Right. So you need we specifically cannot answer questions about specific certification, but that's something that a dislocated worker staff member can answer. And I don't mean to put you off, but because that's regulated by different regulations, we want to be able to give you the correct information, and we don't know about all those resources. Yeah.
Each location has specific partners that they work with, and they have different parameters and so forth. But it's good to always ask.
Mm-hmm. Always
Right.
good to ask. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Why don't you put in one thing that you're going to do for yourself in the next week? How are you going to keep positive? What's one thing you're going to do to recharge your battery? Like I would go out and buy a really good quality dark chocolate bar as a reward. Anybody else have little tricks? I also heard that the Panda cam from the Washington DC Zoo is either up or will be up soon. You can find volunteer opportunities by just Googling volunteer opportunities in your area, and a lot will pop up.
I had put some of that in the chat before, but that's on my list as well, coming to you.
Cool. Thank you, Jack. Oh yeah, see, so you guys, you got it. So please stay positive, and know that you will find something. Maybe not sooner, but definitely later. You will find something. And cool. All right. So unless there's any more questions, we'll give you back 2 minutes of your day. And Jack will be sending out a whole whatever, a whole lot of information.
I shall.
Yeah. So yeah. Take care and check out the other creative job search workshops. Bye.